Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another StarCraft 2 commentary, this time a game between MTW Dimaga and his opponent will be PWR Elfi. This is going to be a Black Dragon League best of 3 series. Haven't really done any commentaries over the past week or so. I've been watching a lot of streams, watching a lot of Mr. Bitter and other coaching videos, just trying to get better, increase my knowledge base. And one of the things that I found interesting in watching streams is the limited amount of information that you get just seeing one player's point of view. So I wanted to try a cast just checking out Dimaga's point of view in this game. So bear with me if this is not your cup of tea, but I think that we can learn a lot by just seeing what Dimaga can see and then also seeing his reaction to certain things. The ZVP matchup can be a tough one at times. There are certain timings where Protoss is very powerful in the early going with a 4-gate timing. Then there's the Colossus timing where they push out off of 2 bases and get that death ball going. Can be very difficult to deal with. So I want to try to take a look at Dimaga's viewpoint here, see what he's scouting for, see what sort of reactions he's going to have. Looks like he's going for a 14 gas, and I imagine he'll be getting a pull down here shortly thereafter. So maybe going for a fast speedling opening, and it looks like he's letting that gas almost finish before getting down that pool. So about a 14-14, and just right now spreading out his overlords. Saw that second overlord goes to the natural. That way there aren't any sort of cannon shenanigans going on, as he is going to try to keep track of that probe. Right now just ducking in and out, and Elfi is going to be able to see that the speedlings will be on the field shortly. That gas is up and running already, and now he's going to do his best to try to block that expansion, keep Dimaga on one base for as long as he can, setting up a bit of a patrol there. Dimaga readjusting that overlord, making sure that he keeps scouting that probe. A lot of times that probe will duck behind that mineral line of the natural, start throwing up a few pylons and a cannon, and really prevent the natural expansion from going down. Again, Dimaga has not yet sent out a drone scout, so he doesn't know what that first building of Elfi is. Elfi could have a forge down, or he could be going for the 2 gates, so he's going to have to send some sort of scout over. It looks like forgelings are on the way for Dimaga, so we'll see what he's able to do with those lings. Speed also on the way, and he's pulled his drones off of gas at the moment at exactly 100 gas. So it looks like going to try to chase away that probe, setting up that expansion now on 21 food. So not too late of an expansion, and speed about halfway done. And checking out these 4 lings, 1 is going to be following that probe around non-stop. Looks like 2 are going to be taking the 2 watchtowers in the center, and then that 4th ling going to the base of Elfi. He wants to check out what sort of structures Elfi does have set up at the front. He's going to want to see that that zealot is blocking off, and then he also wants to try to take a peek at the 2nd unit coming out of that gateway. He wants to know whether it's going to be a stalker or whether it's going to be a sentry. If it is a sentry, that could mean that Elfi is going for a 3-gate expand, something a bit more defensive, as Protoss will try to get out those sentries early and start banking some energy. See, the 3-gate expand, a very popular build these days. And if it's a stalker, he may be going for something a little bit more aggressive, maybe pushing out that first zealot and a stalker, trying to dabble a little bit, as we do see the sentry. So Dimaga taking 1 shot from that sentry and then keeping that Zergling right in the natural of Elfi. At the moment he does have a roach warren going on and just droning up. So now he's also going to be seeing that pylon, and again, that is a sign that a fast expand is coming. So now we see 6 more drones coming from Dimaga. So reacting to that little bit of information, just that 1 pylon going down, he knows what that usually means, and now we'll check it out. He's droning pretty hard. If we check the income count, it is 30 harvesters to 24. Bit supply blocked at the moment, but getting up these overlords and doing his best to be quite an annoyance with that speedling. Again, Elfi cannot catch that, and he's got very good scouting information. We see that 4th Zergling is checking for proxy pylons all around the southeast part of the map, and Dimaga continuing to be a pest here, and he wants to try to get a count on those sentries. If at some point Elfi does stop that sentry production, starts going into some more zealots and stalkers, it could mean a push is coming. And it looks like a lot more drones have come out for Dimaga at this point. It's now up to 40 harvesters. He does see that Elfi is pushing out across that middle, So Elfi could be going for a bit of delayed pressure here, but with just those sentries and the zealots, he's not going to be able to do too much damage. See, Forge is going down as well, another common thing, and now Dimaga is going to be able to get into the base of Elfi, so he's going to be able to see the whole build here. So he's going to see the 3 gates, he's going to see, it looks like, the robotics going down, and he's going to know that there's no starport up, so that Phoenix, which is in his main right now, he's not going to worry about it, it's fake. So that Zergling getting so much information right now, getting a bit of information about how many probes could be in the natural as well, so he knows he's a bit ahead economically. He's just massing more and more drones at this point, up to 45 drones compared to the 30 of Elfi. Doesn't have much in the way of army, but he knows exactly what his opponent's going for here. So we see another 5 drones on the way, and he's also getting up to lair tech. So just a few roaches right now. A lot of Zerg players, they make just too much army, or they do not react well enough to their scouting information. So we see a very small army for Dimaga at this point, but he's relatively safe because he knows his opponent is fast expanding. He's not going to be pushing out with any sort of pressure. So now it's starting to do a little bit of pumping on the army, getting up a Hydralisk Den and an Evolution Chamber, and also preparing for that third by taking down those rocks. So if we check the army counting station, it is now 825 to 575. So Dimaga in the lead in army, also in the lead in harvester and income-wise. So far so good for our Zerg hero, again keeping very active, scouting with the Zergling, wants to get a good count of the number of units which Elfi does have. He sees all of those sentries, does not yet see any sort of tier 2, or tier 3, excuse me. And does know that that Phoenix is a fake. Doing a nice job spreading creep in the center as well, something you have to really focus on when you do go for roaches and hydras, as those hydras are just so slow off of creep. The roaches can be very fast on creep once you do get the speed upgrade for them, as we see that as about 90% complete in the production tab. Looks like we have groove spines coming out as well for Hydralisks. That's a little bit early on that upgrade, but he may think that the Protoss is going to be doing some sort of timing attack and he'll need those grooved upgrades, groove spine upgrades, especially with all the force fields going down. That extra 1 range can really be helpful for those Hydralisks. So we see he's getting up that third. He's already broken down those gold rocks, so he's prepared to take a 4th. He knows his opponent is just on 2 bases at this point, but not too much scouting. Really like to see that Zergling popping up and seeing the, looks like Colossus coming out. As we've been checking the production tab, if you've been cheating like I have, you know those are coming out. See a little bit of a glint of an observer there as well, right over the army of Dimaga. So Elfi knows exactly what his opponent, his army looks like at this point. And now we see more and more drones, another 8 drones coming out for Dimaga. So it feels very comfortable here. He's on 52 harvesters. It'll soon be 60 harvesters spread across these 3 bases. And not much of an army showing for Elfi at this point. Feel like Dimaga could take that if he chooses to engage, but that might not be all of the army of Elfi. It looks like sending 1 Zergling just to test the waters a little bit, taking back that tower, and now that army has disappeared, so it's either to the north or close to that third perhaps. Now we see more and more hydras coming out, and we did see the Colossus, so the spire is almost complete for Dimaga, so he did a nice job preparing for the Colossus. He did see that robotics bay going down in the early part of the game, or the robotics facility, excuse me, and both players keeping their resources very low, but now he sees a lot of Colossus moving out. This is not something that he can take on. He's preparing a nice conclave here, and it looks like Elfi going to do his best to try to clear some of this creep. Some nice force field going down by Elfi, and Dimaga is going to be losing a ton of these units to those Colossi, so very powerful against those Hydras and the Roaches, burrowing a Roach there to try to save it. And on the way we have 15 more Roaches. The spire is complete, so he needs to get out some Corruptors to take on those Colossi. Doing his best to pick off some of the reinforcements here, perhaps going for a bit of a two-pronged attack. He's got these burrowed Roaches in the northern part, he's got the Hydras and the Roaches in the southern part, trying to defend against this third. But Elfi's got a lot of Stalkers here, he's got a lot of Colossus as well. Throwing down some nice force fields, going to be preventing any sort of attack from the north and the south at the same time. And again, still just 1 Corruptor on its way, but it's not going to be getting here in time. 9 more Roaches as well, and Elfi doing a lot of damage here to both the economy and the army of Dimaga. Still has those 3 Colossi up there just shredding the army of Dimaga. Out comes the first Corruptor, but that's not going to be enough to take on all those Colossi with the number of Stalkers which Elfi does have. And it looks like Elfi is going to be taking down that third and then just pulling back. He knows at this point keeping the drone or the Zerg on 2 bases is a huge win for him. Zerg really wants to be a whole base ahead of your opponent, maybe even 2 at times. But at this point, Elfi has shown just the 2 bases at this point. Dimaga has not done too much scouting, so Elfi could have that third. He could have the gold as well. But he knows that his opponent is just on the 2 bases, and now the income of both players, the income of Dimaga is going to be going down quite a bit as soon as the time ticks by here. He still has a decent number of Harvesters. He was able to save those from that attack. And now he's got to get out enough Corruptors to take on the number of Colossi, which Elfi does have. He saw 3 Colossi before. So you're going to try to group up those Corruptors and hide the numbers that he does have. I'm not sure he's going to be able to take on the army of Elfi at this point. Elfi doing a really nice job clearing off this creep. Again, the creep's so very important against Protoss with the Hydras and the Roaches. Dimaga doing a nice job trying to hide the number of Corruptors there. See that players do that with Vikings as well. You don't want to know that your opponent has 12 Corruptors there. You'll definitely play a bit more defensive, perhaps swap over to Immortal production. And sending in that Zergling there, he did see the number of Colossi. It looked like 3 or 4 Colossi, so hasn't added too many more. But he does know his opponent does have that gold, so he's going to have to get that third up and running again shortly. It is on its way, almost complete. And he may actually want to take his own gold, but he does not have map control at this point, does not have creep spread, and I do not believe that he has the superior army. 4,600 to 3,900, Elfi is in the lead supply-wise and army value-wise, now 5,300 to 3,900. So he does have that tower, so he's able to see that army as it does move out. He's seeing a lot of Colossi there, so he's really going to have to micro the next battle very carefully, using Corruption on those Colossi, taking them down with those Corruptors, and trying to limit the amount of damage that can be done to the Roaches and the Hydras until all those Colossi are down. Then you can just push forward, and the Roaches and the Hydras should be able to rip apart all of the gateway units of Elfi. So still seeing 5 of those Colossi. Always doing good scouting here. There's a period of time there where he was not scouting very well, but now he's sacking a Zergling every few seconds, just making sure he has all the information possible. Still pumping out a lot of Roaches, 17 Roaches on the way, so he may be going for a bit of a counterattack here, or a bit of attack. It looks like Elfi pushing in, and now he's a split army. He's got his Roaches, his Corruptors, and his Hydras. He needs to make sure those Hydras are in the back, away from those Colossi. And it looks like Corruption going down on the first Colossi. Down goes one of them. And now trying to keep his Roaches in the front. The Colossi doing their best to micro backwards. They want to target those Hydras, not the Roaches. And the Corruptors going to town on these Colossi. Down go another few Colossi. The Corruption going off, and it looks like just 1 Colossi left. Down it goes. And now just a bunch of Stalkers, a few sentries left for Elfi. A transfer here coming from Dimaga. All good Zerg players are going to be macroing back behind any sort of attack. And now he's just pushing forward, and it looks like Elfi has a lot more units than Dimaga, but Dimaga in both the Roaches and the Hydralis just has superior units. We see him using Corruption on a few of these Stalkers as well. Once all the Colossi are down, you want to continue to use those Corruptors. Use Corruption on the front Stalkers. They'll be taking extra damage, which will really help out your Roaches and your Hydralis. Hydralis especially, as they are just DPS machines. So it looks like continuing to keep his pressure on here and trying to keep the Stalker count very low for Elfi. He knows that Elfi is not going to be pushing out with Colossi anymore unless he does have a good Stalker count to support it. So he's going to continue to trade some Roaches for Stalkers here, burrowing those Roaches, making sure that they are healing up. And now more and more Hydras coming out. If we cheat once again on the production tab, we do see that Psionic Storm about to finish for Elfi. So now that Dimaga has taken control of the air with all these Corruptors, Elfi knows that 1 or 2 Colossus out, not really going to help him too much, so he's going to have to do a bit of a tech switch, get out a few of these High Templar, and that's going to slow down any sort of pressure. As we see, Dimaga does have these 3 bases up and running. I imagine he will be going for a 4th shortly, as he has wrestled back map control from the Protoss player. He still doesn't know whether Elfi is on that 3rd or the 4th base yet, so may want to send in another Zergling or 2 to do a bit of scouting. And he does not know that the tech switch to High Templar has been done. Amulet almost finished for Elfi. And now pushing forward here, he's going to be taking on the units here of Elfi, trying to focus down the one Colossus there, and it will go down very quickly. Now Storm's going off. Dimaga are going to have to react to this and try to micro these Hydralisks. A few of them very low after that Storm went off, but the Amulet has not yet finished, so I imagine he will not have too many more Storms. Dimaga doing as much damage to these Stalkers as he can. Again, getting a lot of good corruptions on those Stalkers so they take more and more damage. From the southwest, we see some more Roaches coming as well. And now trying to keep the pressure on, trying to keep the unit count very low. And again, using that corruption quite well. Another Storm going off. So Dimaga going to have to back away here. The Hydra is very weak against those Storms, especially off creep. They're quite slow. Now we see more and more Roaches coming out from Dimaga in reaction to those Storms. He knows that there are no more Colossi on the field. He's got the high Corruptor count. 1 or 2 Colossi, not going to do too much at all. And now the Roaches and the Hydras going to try to keep the front of the line here held for the Zerg player. He wants to keep map control. He wants to be able to try to dictate the course of the game. Doing his best to focus down that High Templar. It will get the Storm off, but only on those Roaches. If we check the Roaches and the Hydralisks, they are at 2-1 at this point. Spreading creep, he did lose that creep in the early game, as Elfi did a nice job of clearing it off, so he needs to continue to spread creep. Ideally, he'd want to engage Elfi's army on creep so he can get a good concave set up quickly, especially with those Hydras and those Roaches. Again, you cannot stress creep management enough. Now it looks like he has a decent number of Roaches. If we check the unit counting station, has 21 Roaches and 6 Corruptors along with 6 Hydras. And just not much army right now for Elfi. Elfi coming in here, trying to do a bit of damage, and now it looks like a clutch burrow from Dimaga, burrowing that Queen and all of these drones. So not much damage going to be done. And it looks like a blink out of there by Elfi. So he knew he wasn't going to be able to do much damage, and now these Stalkers will go down. Dimaga chasing those down. So losing a lot of Stalkers and not doing very much damage there was Elfi, and he doesn't have much of an army anyway, so kind of taking a risk there. Those Blink Stalkers blinking right into the Hydralisks. A lot of corruption going down as well, and Dimaga getting up that gold. If we check the income counting station, it is 54 to 63, so Elfi has a lot more probes, but he is just showing the 3 bases at this point. I imagine he is on that 4th base. Going back to the unit producing station, we see more and more Roaches on the way for Dimaga. So the Roaches are a good counter to this High Templar. They have 145 health. The Storm's just doing 80 damage, and if you micro out of them, even less. And if you burrow those Roaches, then they're not going to be taking much damage at all. They'll actually regen damage almost as fast as the Storm can do it. So now pushing forward, taking back that tower, and now we see a Roach in the 4th of Elfi, trying to take out a few probes. Macroing back at home as that Roach does damage. Again, a lot of players would be watching that Roach, perhaps even microing it a little bit, but Dimaga, knowing that it'll do enough damage if he just lets it stay there, and macroing back at home, making sure that he's constantly producing more and more army. Another 10 Roaches on the way, and he knows exactly where his opponent's army is at this point. He knows the general composition, pushing forward with some Roaches here, doing his best to lighten up the units of Elfi, and these Roaches are just so powerful. Some Storms going down, now pulling back, so baiting a few Storms, and now he can just burrow, and all these Roaches heal up so very quickly. So taking out a few of those Zealots there, and the Stalkers as well, and in exchange not giving up too many Roaches, again baiting some Storms, and can just pull back once again. More and more Storms coming out for Elfi, so wasting Storms on these Roaches. Few Roaches going down, but the rest just burrowing here. They will be at full health in just a moment. If we check the army counting station, it's 5,100 to 4,000. It looks like Dimaga now pushing forward with all of his units. A moving into the group here, and again, one more Colossi has joined the fray, but all these Corruptors have total control over that situation, taking down that Colossi, and now the Roaches and Hydras pushing in here. Corruptors still using corruption on those front Stalkers, so taking a lot of damage. Another burrow coming from Dimaga. So all these Roaches close to full health once again after that burrow, and Elfi forced to give the GG. So very interesting game there from Dimaga. He had very good scouting at the start. We saw him use those 4 Zerglings. He was able to take down the one probe there, or he was able to keep an eye on it. He also continued to scout the map for proxy pylons, took both of those towers, and then he had that one Zergling that was basically the MVP of the game at the front ramp of Elfi. He kept poking in there. He saw that the second unit out of that gateway was a sentry. He saw that pylon go down at the bottom of the ramp, so he knew that a fast expand was coming from Elfi, and he just droned up very, very hard. He was about 50 drones in the early game there to Elfi's 30, so he was able to macro up. He had a bit of a blunder in the mid game, losing a good portion of his army to those Colossi. He didn't scout the robotics bay. One thing I think that Dimaga could have done a better job with his Overlord spread in this game. I'm not sure if he actually knew that that Phoenix in the early going was actually a hallucination, but we see that he had a lot of his Overlords just grouped up on his spawning pool here, which is something that players like to do when they do think that Phoenix are on the field. So he could have done a better job spreading those Overlords, had a bit more information, perhaps ducked an Overseer into the base of Elfi and done some scouting, and reacted to those Colossi a little bit earlier. As we did see, he lost all those Roaches and a few Hydras to those Colossi. He actually lost that third, but he was able to recover and just out macro his opponent. He did a nice job with that burrow micro at the end there, baiting some storms, just backing away, burrowing, healing up, and then pushing in again, and Elfi could not get out very many Colossi with the number of Corruptors which were on the field, and the storms were just not very effective with those burrowed Roaches. So pretty good game here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this type of perspective. Again, watching a lot of streams, you can learn from players, and having the same exact information as them, you can kind of get a feeling about whether they're ahead or behind. And I know watching streams, I'm always yelling at myself or yelling at the player to do this, do that. So, yeah, this is something that can give you a new perspective, perhaps help your play a little bit. Again, thanks for watching this one. Take care.